Hello and welcome to the Night Feed. I'm your host, Charlotte, here to bring you some comfort, camaraderie, and conversation and keep you company during, let's face it, one of the toughest parts of being a new parent, the Night Feed. Tonight's unpaid sponsor is sneezing and weeing. Oh my God, I didn't have this with my first two pregnancies, like at all, even after birth, which I felt really fortunate about. But the other day, I did the most almighty, unexpected sneeze, which is hard enough when you're 5 months pregnant. And lo and behold, I had to run to the loo. Nothing like a reminder like that to do your kegels, is there? How are we all? I hope you're all having a good week wherever you are in the world. I hope you're getting some semblance of a night's sleep. I hope you're functioning okay. It's tough. It's tough in those early nights. But yeah, I hope you're all okay. My eldest, who is 4, has gone to preschool today, dressed for a dance-a-thon. And if you live in the UK, you'll know at the moment it is freezing, like polar freezing. I've heard rumours of -7 for this week in a Scandinavian chill grip. Doesn't that sound delightful? I love a good chill grip weather warning. Oh, Christ. So, back to the dance-a-thon, because of this weather, she had to go to school dressed for dancing. Okay. And she has ballet lessons. So, of course, she was going to go as a ballerina. It was fancy dress, whatever they want to wear. So, got a leotard out this morning, got a tights, got a skirt already, and then realised we're living through a Scandinavian chill grip. She can't go to school in a leotard. So, the poor little thing basically went in what I would describe as a ballerina Michelin man kind of get up. She had 2 pairs of tights on, a leotard, a ballet skirt, a long sleeve top, 2 cardigans, and a big coat on. And yeah, I just hope she asks for help when she needs a wee. If you're listening to this in a warmer climate, hi, Australia, Africa, South America. I know I have some lovely listeners there. Enjoy not having this battle. The cold is not fun. It's not glamorous. We want warmth. I want the summer. No chill grips. Oh. Before I dive in tonight, I just wanted to let you know about my newsletter. So I'm going to be sharing a weekly newsletter via email, and it will update you on the latest episode. And plus, there's going to be loads more in there, like tips, a blog, things that I'm loving at the moment, helpful resources, and I'm going to be running some giveaways as well. So if you'd like to receive it direct to your inbox, just head to my website, thenightfeed.co.uk. I'll link it in the show notes, and hit the subscribe button in the top right. So at the moment, I'm getting quite a lot of messages and comments on some of my social posts about breastfeeding pain, and I just thought I'd touch on a few tips in case you're struggling with this. First time round, I really struggled, and I know I've spoke about this before in earlier episodes. In the first 2 or 3 weeks as a first-time mum, my breastfeeding was so painful. And it's tough getting through that time, knowing there could be a whole host of reasons why it's hurting. And I think the pressure, you can really feel the pressure because especially if you're exclusively breastfeeding, you feel that pressure to feed your baby, even though it's in some cases excruciating. And it was for me in the first week. And I talk about this quite a lot because I want mums out there to know that if they are set on breastfeeding, it's relatively normal to have a level of pain because your body's not done it before. It's completely new. And I've said previously, if my mum hadn't said to me, it gets better, it honestly gets better, I'd have probably switched the bottle because I wouldn't have known that it was going to get better. So if you are set on breastfeeding and it is really hurting, then I thought I'd just share a few tips that really helped me in those first few weeks. So I've looked back and I've realised that I had the latch wrong in the early days. I was initially just putting my nipple into the baby's mouth when actually they need to be latching onto the area around the nipple as well to draw down the milk. So always make sure they have a wide mouth when they latch. It's not like putting a teat in their mouth. It's more like putting a good proportion of your boob in their mouth, basically, so that they can draw down the milk. And it just makes sense when you think about it. That just helps your boob to encourage the letdown. The mouth helps with the letdown, and it just keeps the milk flowing a lot better than obviously if they're just sucking on the nipple. And this poor latch led me to cracked and broken nipples, which is absolutely not fun. And side note, if you are struggling with cracked nipples, Lancelin nipple cream was a saviour for me. You'll be able to get on Amazon or anywhere. I think it's about £8-10. And it's just like a balm for your nipples, if you don't know, like a lip balm. And it really helped me a lot. I would put it on between feeds because I think even if you've not got cracked nipples, your nipples can get a bit sensitive because, you know, they've not done it before, and it is important to take good care of them. So I would put that on a bit between feeds, and that really, really helped. And I think more so with my second, because I didn't have the pain with my second baby. It was more a kind of uncomfortableness to begin with the nipples. So yeah, Lancelin cream is a saviour. If you're not onto it yet, I would get onto it. I didn't personally use nipple guards, even though they were recommended to me. I got some in just as the pain was starting to subside, so I just stuck with as is, and I didn't interfere with the nipple guards. But I know some people really like them, and they can be a big help. I did use a feeding pillow. Again, you can get them off Amazon, and they just lift the baby up. They elevate the baby so that you're not hunched over. And that did help with my latch. And to be fair, Jason was really good with that. He would, as soon as I started breastfeeding, if I wasn't using that pillow or if I was hunched somewhere like you do, he would be like, no, come on, you need to get comfortable first. And I think it's very important as a mum to remember that. We all think of the baby first, and we're like, oh, they're crying, they need to be fed, they need to be fed. And you almost get into this like panic, like, oh, quick, get them on the boob, get them on the boob. But actually, the more comfortable you are, the more enjoyable the feed's going to be for them. So it is important to make sure you get your cushion ready, you've got your water next to you or your drink, and baby is in a comfortable position. And if you haven't got someone on you like Jason was with me saying, get in a comfortable position, just remember that for yourself, that you need to have that set up for it to be comfortable. Another, on the comfort level, really important point is to make sure your bra is comfortable and not too tight. Because if it's too tight, it can lead to engorgement, which no one wants, believe me. And I fed on demand in those early weeks to prevent that engorgement as well. You get a lot of cluster feeding in those early weeks, and sometimes you can be like, I just fed her 15 minutes ago. I've probably not got any milk, but you do. And your milk supply adjusts to them. So the first few weeks can feel like just constant feeding. And I think it's important to go with that. So you're flushing the milk out and the milk is coming in and it's moving. Equally, make sure that you're drinking a lot of fluids, because I did get mastitis once or twice and it's not nice. So keep the fluids going, keep the milk flowing. And I was also shown a massage by a midwife to help with the letdown, and just kind of like massage around the top area of your boob. I'm sure you'll be able to find something on YouTube that goes into more detail, but that just helps with prevention of clogged milk ducts, and they're what lead to mastitis. So just a few tips. I know in the early weeks it can be really, really full on, and this is to help you even if you are thinking of moving to the bottle after a few weeks or after a few months, whatever you're planning on. If you are feeding in those early weeks, they can sometimes be the most sensitive weeks. And if you're pregnant, I don't want you to hear this and be like, oh my Lord, that sounds terrible. Because actually, after, I would say, 2.5 weeks of pain, but it got easier. After that time, it became a breeze for me. And that's my experience personally. But we would go out and about. I'd be in the park breastfeeding. I'd be chatting on the phone. And it was so convenient not having to take bottles that you have to sterilize. For me, in my personal situation, I found it a lot easier. So if you are pregnant and you're planning to breastfeed, I'm not saying this to put you off at all. I'm just saying this to give you some advice so that you can go into it as best as you can, and then hopefully you will see a vast improvement like I did when it comes to like the sensitivity and the pain. It just became completely fine. I didn't really feel it. And with my second, initially the first week was a little bit tender because again, your body's not done it for a while, but straight after that it was absolutely fine. So I think it's something that we need to talk about more, because sometimes women can think, oh, is it just me? Is it just me that it's hurting? And if things don't improve, and if you think there's a genuine concern and your baby's not putting weight on, then absolutely speak to a health visitor or midwife or whoever you speak to. There are plenty of lactation consultants out there as well. And there are free resources on this if you know where to look. So definitely get help if you think something's wrong. But equally, it does get better if you're anything like me, and it'll hopefully become a really, really enjoyable bonding experience like it was for me. Okay, hope that helps. On to the emails. We have had a response this week to the mum who wrote in last week about struggling with her mother-in-law. And this person says, hello, I was listening to your latest episode and heard the email about the mother-in-law problems. I wanted to write in to share my experience in the hope it will help. My mother-in-law was very overbearing in the first few weeks, right at the time when I needed space. She lives 5 minutes away, so would come round at the drop of a hat. She would question everything I was doing and get involved with waking the baby during naps, telling me they shouldn't sleep so much or they won't sleep at night. Oh my Lord. Ugh. I felt like every decision made was being monitored and argued with until one day me and my postnatal hormones couldn't take it. I snapped. I went full on into her and told her how much her constant comments were just too much. I told her I'm the mum here and I need to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. She just went silent and left. It was horrible as she went quiet on us and didn't come over. My husband asked what had gone on and I told him. To be fair, he was very understanding, but he was caught completely in the middle. I knew deep, deep down she was trying to help, and it was her overbearing way of showing it. I also knew we couldn't let this go on. So I plucked up the courage to go over and talk. I was really honest about how I was feeling, but also said how much we do appreciate her help. I was very diplomatic considering, and she actually reasoned with me. She apologised and admitted to being over the top. And since we've luckily had quite a harmonious relationship, the blip allowed us to set some boundaries, and she gets it now when I say thanks, but I'm going to do it this way. I guess what I'm saying is many of us have been there, and rather than letting the relationship worsen, it's best to be honest, even if it is daunting. Hope this helps. Wow. Yeah, thank you. I love it when you guys write in to help each other. It's like the best thing that you've listened to that email and you thought, you know what, I've been in the same boat. Here's what I think. I think it's brill. So yeah, it sounds like it's pretty common, these kind of relationships, whether it's with your mother-in-law, whether it's with an aunt, whether it's with, I don't know, whoever. And it's how you handle it. And like this listener said, you are full of postpartum hormones that I remember can do crazy things to your mood. So the way this has been handled has been really diplomatic, because like I think the previous listener said, allowing this relationship to worsen would naturally cause a friction between you and your husband as well. So it's really, really important to kind of save it before it sours even more. And it sounds like you've made the best of this awkward situation and actually have been able to air your grievances. And if you are going through something like this, hopefully you can catch it before it turns into an explosion like that, because nobody wants that. But being open with your feelings and communicating and just saying, this isn't what I need right now. And anybody should understand that a brand new mom is vulnerable, they're emotional, and they're just trying their absolute best. And ultimately, you are the one in control of that baby with your partner, and what you say goes. And people need to respect those boundaries. So I think, as awkward as it can be, it's about setting boundaries, isn't it? And just saying, look, today you've told me quite a few times that I'm doing things wrong, and I am trying my best and I'm trying it my way. And I just really, really appreciate it if you just gave me some space on that. I don't know, trying to come up with a diplomatic way to stop any relationship like that worsening. But thank you for that. I think it really helps. And if anyone else has got more advice on this topic, because it sounds like a really popular topic and unfortunately quite something that a lot of people go through. So if you have been through it and you've got some advice, send it in as well. Next email says, hello, I'm an avid listener to the podcast, especially during the day when my husband is at work and I'm at home with my 1-year-old. I wanted to ask, what do you do all day with the kids? Sometimes I get such fatigue with the daily routine. I try and entertain her as much as I can, but it can be exhausting. I feel ungrateful ranting as I know I'm lucky to be with her and I didn't want to come across like I'm not. But any tips on keeping us both busy would be greatly appreciated. Oh, okay. This is quite a common thing, I think, is being at home. You almost fall into an accidental routine, don't you? You have your breakfast, you play, then you have lunch, then you play, then and I get that. It can feel monotonous, even though I, like you, feel extremely lucky and fortunate to be able to be with them. So my first piece of advice on this is get out of the house. I went through a bit of a phase of just being in. I think it was the cold weather, surprise, surprise. But I went through a bit of a phase, and after my uncle, which I spoke about on the podcast last week, my uncle passed away 2 weeks ago. And last week, I just did not stop walking. I went out with the pram. I dropped my eldest at nursery and I just walked through the park. Every day I went to the shop to get that night's tea. Rather than doing a big shop, I just thought it'll get you out knowing that you need food in. My youngest was in her element because she was at the Ducks every day. Then we went to the library, which is near the supermarket. And it just gave our days such purpose, and it kept my mind active, because I knew if I was just going to stay at home, I'd be thinking about him and I'd be feeling really low and emotional. And I think I did like 10,000 steps one day, which is a lot for me. It is a lot, I'll admit it. I know some people do that every day as part of their health routine, but I was trying to just keep active and keep going, and it did absolute wonders for me. And I think if you just stay in, it can feel like samey. And you have to think about it from the baby's perspective as well, and your child's perspective. They're in the same boat. And if you're doing the same thing, we all get bored as humans. We all get into a bit of a monotony. So yeah, tip number 1 is get out as much as you can, wrap up warm, go to the library. You don't have to spend a fortune going to soft play and different places like that. There's a lot of things to do that are free. Play groups are only like £2 in churches generally. They're great. And I think if you have something every day or every other day, like I go to playgroup with mine Monday, Wednesday, Friday, generally, if I don't have anything else on. And it gives your day such purpose, because the mornings of them days, they're happy, you're out, you're seeing mums, you're chatting. It's great. And it gives you something different to do, basically. My other tip is other mums, parenting with other mums. So whether that's them coming around for a brew and your baby's having a play, because babies want to see each other as well. It's great for them to interact. Or you can go to the park, or you can go to a cafe, you can go out for the day. And I think that as well is something to look forward to. You know, if you plan a trip to the zoo with another mum friend, you've instantly got that in your week and you've got that to look forward to, and it's a great experience. Equally, like I said just then, coming round for a brew and having a chat while the babies play is actually like therapy for you as well. And then my other tip is to involve her in your day. And what I mean by that is doing chores, nipping to the shops, going on errands, going for coffee even. I used to be so focused on making sure that they were having fun and, oh, we're entertaining them at home and we're reading books and we're doing puzzles and actually, I think I did this more so with my second. I'd say, right, mummy needs to put the washer on now. Do you want to come and help me? And it would take longer, but she would get involved and she would help. Right, mummy needs to go and change the beds now. Do you want to come and help me? And she loves jumping on the mattresses and getting involved. And it not only means that you're doing something different, but you're getting your jobs done. Rather than letting them all build up till after bedtime, loading the dishwasher, obviously carefully, she helps with that. And it might seem really obvious, just like, oh yeah, well, I'm just doing my jobs and she's following me around and helping. But actually getting them actively involved and being like, oh, you're so helpful. And my mum does a great one when she comes over to look after them in the kitchen. She'll just give them wet wipes and they'll wipe my cupboards. I came down the other day and my kitchen was sparkling. And she was like, the girls have done this. They've wiped all the cupboards and they've wiped the high chair. And I think when they feel like they're getting involved, it almost makes them feel grown up and like you're really appreciating the help. And I know yours is only one. I don't know how old you put one, so they could be almost two, or they could be still like quite like a baby at one, can't they? So it's how you manage that. But yeah, I think getting out, seeing other mums and involving them in your day are my top tips. And if anyone else has any other advice on this topic, I think it'd be a great one to share some ideas on. So again, email me, thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Next email says, this is quite, this is, I'm really struggling. Hello, I want to know if this is just me or are there others out there with the same issue. My first baby is now 1 and he was an awful sleeper. I thought maybe this time around, with it being my second, I'd have a great sleeper. But I'm wondering if it's something I'm doing wrong. Tonight is our first night home with our newborn boy, and he won't let me put him in the bassinet at all to sleep. The second his head hits the mattress, he's awake. I really don't know what to do. He's fed, he's been changed and swaddled, and he will not go to sleep. I am going to lose my mind if I have another newborn stage where I get no sleep. Help. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, gosh, it's really tough. I've been there. I honestly have been there my first few weeks with both of them. They would hardly go in the bassinet, or I think we had a next to me for my second, and she wouldn't. You think, we had a Moses basket with my first. So I just put this on it being a Moses basket. I thought, well, maybe because she's a bit further away from me and it's the whole lifting up over the basket for her to go in that's making her stir. So I was like, right, with the second, we're going to get a next to me so that the transition to her crib basically is really smooth. And no, that didn't work either. I tried so many things. I remember in hospital, the midwives would like prop her legs up a little bit, almost to make her feel like she was still in the womb, because they've come out of the womb and they were all curled up in a little ball, really, aren't they? And I think it's that feeling of exposure that makes them wake. And I think it's really a lot more normal than we think. Now, I don't really know what best to say. It's really tricky, other than me saying you are absolutely not alone and you aren't doing anything wrong. Babies want to be on their mum. They want to be on their mum or their dad. They want that contact and that security. Don't get me wrong, some are fine and they will just go to sleep in a cot. And, every baby's different. But mine were similar to yours in the sense that, I would feed them, I would change their nappy. And I would get them ready, all swaddled or in their little bag, sleeping bag. And within minutes, they'd be awake again. And I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? I think sometimes I'd get an hour or two stretch, which was like what? I think an hour in the first week or two was like golden. And I think we need to talk about this a little bit more because there's a lot of pressure on it. And I think actually the conversation needs to be, this is completely normal. Babies, they're not playing up. You're not doing anything wrong. It's not how you're swaddling them. It's not the temperature of the room. It's simply the fact they've come out of your womb and now they're exposed, and they probably feel isolated, don't they, being away from you? And they've never felt that before. And I know this isn't helping you because this isn't giving you an amazing solution. But I did end up co-sleeping. And I know that's not for everybody. I know some people just will not do it because either they're worried about it, which is fair enough, or they don't want to do it, and that's fair enough. For me, with my first, I think 3 months in of hardly any sleep, one night I researched the safe sleep guidelines. I know I spoke about this before in the podcast, but if you haven't heard me speak about this before, I researched the safe sleep guidelines and I co-slept and had the best night's sleep I had had in a long time. And I rang my mum that morning and I was like, Mum, I slept with her last night and I've had some sleep. And she was like, I didn't want to tell you, but I did it with all three of you. She said, I didn't want to tell you and recommend something that could be dangerous or something could happen. She said, I didn't want that. You know, I wanted you to work it out for yourself and make sure that's what you wanted to do. Obviously, very safely with the covers. And if you are considering co-sleeping, I must reiterate, do look into the safe sleep guidelines. But I think a lot of Eastern cultures do. I think it's a very Western thing that babies go into their cot in the first few weeks and months. Now, what I will say is, for me, co-sleeping, I didn't want to do it until they were about 2 or 3 months. I think I just felt it was just too soon for me to have them in the bed when they're super tiny. So I think I persevered in the first month or 2 or 3 months, and I would just sleep on hardly any sleep and just make sure they went back in the next to me or the Moses basket. And then when it got to that kind of 3-month mark, I felt a little bit more comfortable, still very carefully. And yeah, co-sleeping saved me. It really did, because it's so hard when they just won't go in the cot. And you're not alone. I've been there. There's been plenty of people. In fact, the more mums I speak to, the more mums say, yeah, I've co-slept. Now, what you have to remember is that can translate into the baby not wanting to leave the bed. So I currently have my youngest, who is 2. She will go down in a cot, all fine, and then she will wake between 11 and 2-ish and get in with us. And I just don't have the battle with putting her in a cot, just get her in. And it's fine. And I love the snuggles. And yes, she's getting a bit feistier now in terms of her weight and that she can kick harder. So I do have to be very careful with that, especially now I'm pregnant. But we all sleep better because if she's in a cot in the early hours and she wakes, then we have to get up and get her, and we'd probably put her back down and she'd probably wake again. So you have to remember that it's not just the co-sleeping in the early days, it can actually last a bit longer. And we are kind of talking about, me and Jason, what we're going to do when new baby comes, because we don't want a toddler being near a newborn if we were to co-sleep. So it's just something we've got to consider. But yeah, co-sleeping is what I found was the solution to that problem for me. But it's completely up to you, and you need to decide what's best for you and use your own kind of gut feeling with that, and know that it doesn't last forever, even though you've just had a year with a 1-year-old who was a bad sleeper as well. It's a case of trying to get through and just knowing that you're not doing anything wrong, that it is a very normal thing. So I hope that helps a little bit. Next tonight is what's trending. I saw this video pop up I think, on YouTube the other day, and it was just a short of a guy sat on a plane tearing up, right? And they hook you in, don't they? So he's like tearing up, and he's like, I've just been handed this by a mum in front of me. And what it was a mum and I think a 6-month-old baby was sitting on the row ahead, and she handed out a bag to the passengers directly around her with sweets in and like little gift and some earplugs with a note that said, this is our first flight together, along the lines of this. I can tell you that I will behave, but I can't say the same for my baby. Please be patient with us if you can. I will try my best to keep them as quiet as I can, and I hope you have an enjoyable flight. And the guy's like really tearing up, like, oh, this is so sweet. And I think he does another video where he goes and tells her, like, don't worry, my parents used to travel with me, it's all good. But boy, did this split the comments. And a lot of them were, this is really sad, that is what society has made us believe, that the mum is the bad person bringing a baby on the flight and everyone else is the victims of the baby being brought on the flight, when actually we need to remember that babies are babies. And yes, you have booked a flight and you don't necessarily want a baby crying all the way next to you, but I think we have to be a bit kinder. And I think if a mum's getting on a flight dreading it, absolutely dreading it, she has every right to fly. The baby has every right to fly, just as much as the adults do. And I'd love to know what you think about this, because it's caused such a debate in the comments. I was reading through them last night. It was so entertaining. Some of the comments were, people really rip into each other, don't they? Someone would say, oh, this is terrible that she feels she has to do this. And then someone else says, but 6-month-old baby shouldn't be on planes and flying. That's just too young. And it's so funny. But I actually haven't taken my girls on a flight yet. We toyed with going away last year with them. And in the end, Jason and I just had 3 nights away, which was the reset button we needed, really. And we did think, with them being 2 and 3 at that time, going abroad is like being at home but in a more dangerous hot place, isn't it, when they're that age? And they don't remember it, and it's hot, and I'm very much on the fence about traveling with them. And I partly think I'd rather get them to a bit, being a bit older, when they can properly enjoy it, and take them then. But I don't know, I might change my mind. I'm not sure. But my opinion is that the mum shouldn't be persecuted for having a baby on a flight. And the chances are the baby was absolutely fine, especially if they were fed, feeding, and that sucking motion is great for ears. And yeah, I just think it's sad that mums feel like they have to apologise all the time. Such mum guilt in every corner, isn't there? Like, oh, sorry about my baby. It's like, well, don't be sorry about your baby. Your baby has enough right to take up space and be on the plane and live their life. It could have been a really important journey that she had to make. So yeah, I agree with the people that are saying this shouldn't have to be the case. It's a lovely gesture, but it shouldn't have to be the case. But let me know what you think. thenightfeedpodcast@gmail.com. Next tonight is my self-care tip. And I got this book out from a friend. So my friend bought me this when my first was born, and it's called A Little Book of Self-Care for New Mums. And I thought, oh, perfect for the podcast. So I had a little flick through before I started recording, and the first page I landed on was no comparisons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you a quote from the page from another fellow mum. So it says, I once opened the door to the postman just as my friend was arriving. As I did, the dog escaped and my baby did a loud up-the-backer nappy. As I took the parcel off the postman while shouting madly at the dog, I saw my hand and sleeve were covered in baby poo. Meanwhile, my friend gave me a strange nod, and I looked down to see my top hooked up with nipple out post-feed, blinding the postman. Just then, my friend's baby sicked up all over her hair and down her top. We high-fived and doubled over laughing while the postman tried awkwardly to catch the dog. It's been an absolute lifesaver to laugh through the chaos with other mums who are totally in with it, in it with you. I love that. And the next page is just about expectations and comparisons. And it says here, it tends to be when you are feeling most exhausted and vulnerable that everyone else seems to be having the best time. Looking at other mothers' postnatal journeys and convincing yourself that they are doing a better job than you. We seem to have lost something in our Western culture around honouring recovery post-birth. We get caught up in silly bounce-back timings, which can lead to exhaustion and troubling mental health. Expecting a woman to ping back to her pre-pregnant self in a swift 6 weeks is ridiculous. Even if you feel well and your body appears to be returning to the way it looked prior, your hormones are likely to still be unbalanced and your mind will still be adjusting to this significant life change. Don't compare yourself with anyone. Do things in your own sweet time. And I think that was a great page to land on. Comparison is the biggest thief of joy, and I think we all know that. But as mums, like the book says, you can be having the hardest time and everyone around you looks like they're absolutely thriving. So just remember that we're all in this together, and nobody's postpartum journey is perfect. Nobody's days are perfect. You can have great days, you can have low days, and that's normal. And yeah, just don't compare. Whatever you do, don't compare. Whether it's milestones, whether it's your house, whether it's how your body's looking, anything like that. Just think, wow, I've birthed a baby and I'm amazing. And if it takes me years to feel like me again, then so be it. And you need to be kind to yourself. So yeah, I hope that helps. Just stick to your lane and your game and whatever makes you happy. Finally, to finish on a quote I wrote. At 2:30 a.m, I felt you cry, Mama. Tears felt hot under my forehead, and I wanted to tell you this is how I learn love. Not from perfect lullabies or spotless floors, but from you. Your broken whispers, your trembling lips, the way you sway even when your legs want to collapse. You think you're drowning in the dark, but look, my fingers cling to your pajamas like anchors. My sighs melt into your heartbeat. We're not two souls here, we're one, learning how to navigate this new wild world. I know the nights stretch like deserts. I know your mind races with, when will this end? But these hours, they're stitches. Tiny invisible threads weaving us together. One day you'll tell me stories about this time. The 2 a.m. feeds, the blur of exhaustion, the way I fit so perfectly against your chest, and you'll wonder how it slipped away so fast. So let the clock fade, let the laundry pile, let the world spin. Right now, there's only your skin against mine, my breath warming the hollow of your neck, and this truth, you are not alone. This storm will pass, and I will never forget how you love me through the thunder. Thanks, as always, for listening tonight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please remember to give me a rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it. If you could even write a review, that would be amazing. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind telling another new mum about the podcast and spreading the word for me, I'd also hugely appreciate it. And I wish you all a relaxing, peaceful night ahead. Good night.